Oh my god, Twitch, why won't you stop having the thing? And hello everyone, it's me, your local virtual baker, Salty Kichi. Oh wow, that was sure a time. That sure was a time of all time. Hello, welcome back Twitch chat, and hello everyone on YouTube. It's me, your local virtual baker, the soft rising baker boy. That's my intro, right? I forgot my intro. I think that's it. We're assuming that's it. Salty Kichi. Hello, hi, hello. Today, we are doing the stream of all time. We are doing a stream of all time. It's time to talk about how bread. We're talking about bread, but we're talking about bread because there has been this weird global thing that is happening around the world, and it's called seasonal changing. You see, it's really strange, and I know it's really weird to talk about this, alright? But bear with me when I say this, but it's getting cold outside, alright? Alright? I'm not sure how crazy of a thought this is, alright? I was thinking about this, like, you know, hands in my thumbs, just twiddling my thumbs, hands at my side, just, like, thinking. Okay, the BGM is really, really quiet, too. But I was just, like, thinking the entire time, like, you know, I'm gonna twiddle my thumbs and my hands for a while and just think that it's getting really cold outside, you know? It was like really, really cold. Like, you know, it's like 16 degrees outside Fahrenheit. And then next thing you know, it's like 2 months ago, it was like 40. Like, what in the world is going on? I have not checked the patch notes on the entirety of Earth. Earth has not been updated since 2023, and that's been like 2 months ago. It's been cold outside for me for a while. It's been getting warmer for me. Exactly! That's the thing! It's so weird, though! It's so strange! The season's changing, the natural order of the world is becoming colder, and then you're here to tell me that it's gonna get warmer by the time March comes around, cause that's when spring begins? I'm gonna go to Twitch, but I haven't verified, and every time I try, it crashed. I'll be popping in and out of stream since I'm reading something very important. Go do what you need to do, Aftertale. That is very important. However, this stream is also very important because we have to come up with this idea. We have to cope. We have to think about how the entirety of bread baking has now changed. The game of baking has changed because the entirety of the world is now deciding to get colder outside. And it's a weird novel concept. I know it's very strange. I'm still trying to understand it, but it's cold outside. Can you believe it? It is cold outside. Outside, it is cold. It is frigid. It's kind of cool. It's like 17 degrees out. Actually, I think that's a lie, because I think it's like... It's actually 50 right now. But you see, that's precisely my point of how the weather is just so strange. It's hot, and then it's cold, and then it's really hot. Like 50 degrees, that's really, really, really warm. Oh my god, it's so warm. But I do want to put out a disclaimer, because you must all know I talk about this all the time, hopefully. But I want to make sure that I give you a very important disclaimer about today before we actually do any sort of baking, before we talk about any sort of bread, alright? Because the majority of the stuff I'm gonna probably say is most likely not true. And also, I got other things to say, but let's watch this clip, because I need you all to know. I'm pretty sure you all should remember this, because this was from the baking tips stream. You gotta listen in, right? This is my legal discretion, in some sense, I guess you could say. It's a very legal discretion. I am not a registered baker, and I've never worked in a bakery in my life.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I've never worked in a bakery in my entire life. I have yet to get in a job as a baker at all. But it's funny, because even though I'm not like a true deformed baker, I still kind of bake in my job. So even though I'm not like a baker, I'm like a pseudo baker, if that makes sense. So,
But
yeah.
I have never worked in an industrial I have not worked in a commercial setting before.
That's kind of true. Anyways, there you go. That is your discretion for today's stream. That is very, very important for you all to know. That is the wrong music. That's my only disclaimer, and the only disclaimer you will all get for the entirety of stream. It's very important that you know this, because everything I'm going to say is going to be most likely wrong. However, this is my personal experience, and it's also my opinion. So now that I have just stated that everything is now an opinion from this point on, you cannot get mad at me, because it's an opinion, and I raise you the question of, nuh-uh. Okay. Where I live, it's going from 17 to 50 and is rather normal, lol. It's normal for me too. It was like 12 degrees this morning. But now it's like 50, as I already said. So it's like, the weather's crazy, the weather's weird. But you see, if you know anything about baking, weather plays an extremely crucial role in baking, and that is just due to temperature. Temperature and also humidity as well, but we'll get to that later because I don't know how to talk about that, and I will talk so much nonsense. But that being said, welcome to the tier list. This is the tier list of how we are going to be able to describe everything today about baking. But you probably are going to be confused because, you know, I've never made a tier list about bread before. I've never really made a tier list. There's never been like an official tier list out in the world of like talking about, oh yeah, the tier list when it comes to baking, the this is optimal, this is suboptimal, So today we are going to be talking about specifically during the patch notes of the winter and spring patches of 2.0.24. But the first I will start by doing the patch notes of fall to winter in 2.0.23. That is where we gotta get our baseline set. Once we get our baseline set, then it's kind of we go from there, because there hasn't been much change, but there has been still a slightly significant change that we should still talk about. So yeah, this first list is gonna be talking about fall and winter during that time of last patch update. And I'm also kind of realizing this is not going to make sense if you have no idea how to bake. So think of it like this. Today's stream is not only just trying to teach you, not even trying to update you about the recent changes of the baking industry. That definitely is real. But it is also what was I talking about? I forgot what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so baking. This is gonna be this aha surprise, gotcha. This is actually an educational stream now. You wanna know anything about baking? You better be listening in. I'm gonna tell you everything that you might need to know, because I'm very educational. Trust me, I know what I'm saying, and I have no idea what I'm doing. That's what I do with baking. I never know what I'm doing. I don't know how I'm doing, but boy howdy, I'm gonna talk about bread. So, from fall to winter on the 2.0.23, I'm also gonna make this fun, because if anyone else would like to help conversate, I'm opening the VC because I can. You cannot stop me. Okay, so. Oh wow, that's a cool cat. So, from the time of I thought I heard Discord again. Sorry. Alright, I'm gonna mute Discord for now, so you don't get confused. I'm getting confused, and I'm the one that can hear it, so. Anyways, let's talk about baking, because baking in fall was such a good run last year. Oh my god, the patch notes were so great for that time. Because let's just talk about... Okay, let's first talk about our baseline. Because you know how in like most games, there's like that generic character, the OC, the character that everyone runs to because they're like so basic and easy. So white bread is kind of the basic, like, no changes, there's not much issue or change or anything like that. That's gonna be our baseline, because even during last patch, baking white bread or like any sort of bread was just kind of normal. So we can put our milk bread in that same region as well, since milk bread is kind of just milk bread is kind of like sandwich bread, except that it has milk, but the milk content in bread doesn't really have that much of a significant fat content that actually makes it any sort of more difficult or easier to work with. If anything, it got slightly... I don't know what to really say. I guess it got slightly nerfed. Because it's like, well, it's like not nerfed because it's not buffed either. It's like, when you make milk bread and it's hotter outside, inherently you're gonna cook stuff a little bit quicker because it's hotter outside. But it was such a negligible amount of heat that it's not really a nerf if you really think about it. It's a minimal nerf. It's a nerf that's like so minimalistic that it's like, why did the developers put this in the game? Making milk bread like just slightly more harder to bake, but it's just so negligible, who cares? It doesn't matter. So like, technically it's nerfed, but it's like, there is no changes. There is generally no changes during the fall time. So, milk bread and for white bread they're kind of been the same. Have you considered breading bread to make bread squared? I have tried doing that, and by God, that was the most disgusting thing I have ever eaten. It was just bread with bread. Devs put in AC units to bypass weather. Yeah, but the AC units went for so long that they started producing more heat than they actually could cool off. So, unfortunately, during the fall patch of 2.0.23, it's really been a nerf in all sense of regards, but unfortunately, fortunately, it has been a negligible amount of heat, so that is nothing to worry about. However, that negligible amount of heat during the fall time was very crucial in buffing our sourdough. I'm not sure if you know, but I am a sourdough main. My main when it comes to my baking game is that I love sourdough. Sourdough, actually, you know what? I go as far as say it's meta. Sourdough, you could pump out so quickly. It was warm. It was the perfect temperature. The perfect amount of humidity in the air as well. It was the best bread to make in a minimal amount of time, minimal amount of effort, and you were able to make a beautiful product at the end of the day. It was a beautiful piece of bread that you can make. It was quick. It was easy, it was simple, it was not hot, it was not cold. There was enough moisture in the air to where it would rise perfectly and also rest nicely as well. So, during that time, yeah, you can compare it to milk bread and white bread, but during that time, it's become meta. It's just so good in comparison to white bread because sourdough inherently has so much more nutritional value. And not only that, but with the way of how sourdough is made and created and how it's like technically, quote-unquote, fermented. It's just inherently better for you. So you get more nutritional value from it. It's easier to digest, so it's better for you to eat, and you were able to make that in minimal and quick, easy ways. It is essentially meta. It's so good. So, sourdough, you know, we be eating right, we be eating correctly, we be eating well with the recent fall-winter patches. You could say the same with baguettes. However, if you're talking about like a plain white baguette, they got buffed in the sense that, you know, they got the heat advantage, they got the humidity advantage as well. Like, they very much can bake really quickly. Like, they rise and all that stuff quickly. But with how baguettes are, you gotta realize that they also are... How do you say this? They're really wet, essentially. So, actually, I have another bread that's very similar to them that actually, I would say, got almost nerfed. Because, well, for me, I think they got nerfed. Because on a baguette, they have a bit more structure and they have a bit more hold to them. So, they're a lot easier and they bake a lot quicker. And the temperature of the heat really made it thrive. And you're still able to get some nice flavor and this and that. And especially with like how you make baguettes, you use poolishes and then you have some sort of sense of fermentation or a pre-ferment in it. And it makes it more, just a bit more healthy. And you could theoretically put sour starter in it, but then at that point it turns into just a country loaf. It just turns into a, what is it called? A miche. You kind of make your baguette turn into just a very long, thin miche. So, and a miche is kind of like a country loaf, which is also just a sourdough, but a country loaf has yeast in it, but a sourdough usually has a sour starter or something to ferment and give it that yeast a bit more poof. But either way around it, the meta for baguettes, the strategy of using baguettes and consuming and how well they work and how well they are made, it's a very high skill ceiling kind of bread because you do require a lot of kits. You require a large kit for it. You need to make sure you have the right equipment. You gotta make sure that you have the right temperature and recipe. So it is still fairly hard to make, but it definitely got buffed during that hot time, that warm time during the fall. Unfortunately, though, the same cannot be said for ciabatta. Ciabatta, kabata, harama, kuna matata, you whatever you want to say. That got nerfed pretty hard. I don't know why for me. But it's mostly just because it's such a such a high hydration bread. It makes it so much harder to try and bake something that has high hydration during the times of more warm weather. It was not horribly warm, but there was a lot of rain around where I lived, which created a lot of humidity, and then with all of that, it made it a lot more difficult because your ciabatta would just bake a lot more quickly, and this and that, it would be chaotic, and it's too much, and then you gotta worry too much about the skill, and then it's like you can't adapt too quickly because the weather changed too quickly, and especially since if you're a pro gamer and you're like someone who really loves making sourdough, you just can't adapt to that because sourdough has a bit of structure still. It's not as high hydration as a ciabatta. So it's really hard to adapt to that in such minimal time. I don't know why the devs decided to make the game just so much harder with baking in that sense. It's a personal skill issue on my front, but I'm saying it got nerfed. Honestly, it got a little nerfed. On that same idea of getting nerfed, brioche got it actually got ultra buffed. That is because of the warm temperature. The warm temperature really made something very important for brioche to be brioche. That made the process of making brioche a lot easier. And that is simply making butter melt. Not melt, but soften a lot more quickly overnight. Usually when I would make a brioche, I would make the brioche and have a stick or two of butter sitting out overnight, or sitting out before I could bake. Now with during that spring, winter time, I could leave a stick of butter out for like an hour and it'd be nice and soft. It'd be great. It'd be easy to work with and it would actually mix into my dough. Major buff in that sense because it was able to really take opportunity in that sense. It very much just flourished in warmer weathers and also just tastes good. You could say that, oh, you shouldn't eat brioche because it has so much fat and cholesterol and this and that and da. But we're not nutritionists here. We're pro bread gamers and we have to think about how do we make this bread really awesome. So we don't care about nutrition. But we care about nutrition in some sense because when we talk about nutrition in a good way, that means it got mega buffed. But right now, Brioche, it does taste good and it's amazing, but it's not the healthiest of breads. But I will say then, in that sense, challah definitely got a buff in that sense too. Challah bread is pretty much like brioche bread, with the exclusion of any sort of dairy product. So there's a lot of egg yolk. So they still have that nice, lovely, like, yellow, buttery color to them from the egg yolks, but they've gotten a negligible amount of buffs in that sense. Like, they're easy to work with. Actually, you know what? There really was no change. It's kind of just like in the same story as milk bread and sandwich bread. It's negligible. There's not much of a thing that really... It didn't benefit too much from the heat, but it really did just kind of just sit there. Not much change. It definitely was there. It definitely got different, but not much on that front. I'm definitely also gonna put bagels in there as well. Bagels are pretty much in the same ballpark. Not much has changed. They're bagels. They proofed a little bit quicker, but the thing about proofing bagels is kind of hard. Especially when you increase the amount of speed it takes to proof stuff. It can accelerate a bit too much, so I would go as far and say that it got kind of nerfed, but it didn't get as nerfed, as hard as a ciabatta bread. So yeah. Rye bread is unfortunately also just no changes. It's kind of just like a specialty bread that isn't really enriched by much. Granted, it does have a bit of oil into it, so it is slightly enriched, and you'll very much understand as we go through this list through, Sorry, hold on. You'll very much understand as we go through this list the quality of life of what has been nerfed and what has been buffed will change for the breads that are high in hydration, have a very good amount of fat, or enriched in some sort of manner. You see, I'm not sure about you, but playing like the rye meta, the ciabatta, milk bread, and sandwich breads, they're kind of really safe options in the sense of baking. Like, making a bread of any sort of caliber like that, and just because it kind of is in that same ballpark, even though it is very good. Focaccia is also in that ballpark of like, it's fairly basic. It's like, it's good. Like, don't get me wrong, like focaccia is better than all of this bread. I'm gonna put, here, let me rearrange this to make it a little bit more sensible. Focaccia is always just gonna be better than your average white bread, not only because you can make it just a good sandwich for focaccia, but focaccia on its own can also have other toppings on top of it too. Not to say you can't do that on other breads, but focaccia really, really flourishes with that stuff. But that heat didn't really change it too much, because when you move focaccia around, it kind of like, you kind of have to press into it. And when you press into it, it kind of breaks the proof. So actually talking about that then, since it got hotter and you're not really worrying about the proof too much, as you're spreading and pushing it out, it just rises a lot more quickly. And then you can make it spread out more, and then get more lovely air pockets and this and that. So it did get a buff in that sense during that time. But yeah, I don't know what happened with corn. I don't know what happened. I don't know why there's tortillas on this, because tortillas never really got nerfed or buffed. If we want to talk about vanilla, we can talk about tortillas. I love myself a good corn tortilla, don't get me wrong. But listen, they're very easy to make, they're fairly straightforward, and the meta for them has not changed. The weather does not change of how effective they are used, or how viable they are, or how good they taste. That does not really impact them too much. So we can't really talk about that in that sense at all. Cookies. I don't know. Okay, maybe that's a little mean. They're not useless. But there has been no changes to them. I don't know. They're cookies. They're like, you want to talk about vanilla? I don't know how you can get more vanilla than vanilla, but like chocolate chip cookies are fairly vanilla. They're a very safe option. There's not really much viability, and also they're not very nutritious in any sense of the imagination. But they do make you happier, and especially during that fall winter time, the December events really make these actually a lot more better to eat, because they just give you the Santa buff, you know? They just make you very happy and jolly and ho 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 and all that such. So cookies win in that regard. They get a little bit of a buff in that sense, but that's really it. They don't really get much of buff after the fact. So I'm actually going to save this now real quick. And I'm going to actually put these all back. Okay, never mind. I'm not going to put them all back because I don't know how to do that. Anyways, that was our baseline. Let me put them all here in useless because, yes. But I will show you all this now. We're going to leave this here. And we'll have this as our baseline, because as I said, that's our baseline for fall. I do understand that not everyone's gonna be on the ball, if you will, when it comes to the patch notes of baking, but this is all to make sure that you're all up to speed, to know what it used to be like, and how the meta has drastically changed. So yeah. Ugh. But before we do that, I'm just gonna say, make sure you just take a second, stretch a little. Stretch a little, stand up, get some water, take a second to relax. Because I know I've been talking a lot. It feels like a class session of sorts, you could even say, but make sure you stretch. Get ready, because we're about to go through the same carnage again. Because we're going to be talking about weather again. And then we're going to be talking about the season, because this new season that has come out is... well, I'm going to say at least I'm kind of upset about it. Because there was a major nerf, and I will get to that in just a moment, but... This is your second of time to yourselves, everyone. You guys get a few seconds to yourself to relax before I get onto another tangent. So, get ready, or, by God, you will have to face the consequences of me rambling for another 50 minutes. Idiot. Actually, here, let me run an ad on Twitch, so we don't have to get an ad later. We run an ad now, we don't get an ad later, so it'll just be better in that sense. Oh, look! Ah, perfect timing! Ad starts in 23 minutes. How do I turn an ad on? Yeah, I don't know how. Is there a way how? I don't know. Ad break! We're going on an ad break. And speaking of an ad break on YouTube side, I'm gonna give you all a fun little hey howdy hey. I'm gonna let you all know. I'm gonna give you all a heads up here on the YouTube crowd. We are gonna be doing some more things today. I want to be playing some other games, like Minecraft or something like that, so I want to try and do something else today. I'll let you all know on YouTube side. We have more plans. We have more things we're gonna do. Yada yada. But yeah, I want to get through this because I've been wanting to do this tier list for a while. It's a fun idea, you know. It's just something that I really want to make sure everyone knows, because the bread game has changed recently, and I will show you how much it changed, because it really did flop on its head. I don't know what the developers were thinking about making sure that the weather gets colder. Like, why? It's like it happens every 4 years, or it happens once every 4 years. It's weird. I don't understand. It's like one half of the year is really hot, then cold, then really cold, and then really hot. It makes no sense. Like, why can't we have consistent weather? Why can't we just have weather that is consistent? The game is already perfect. Why must the game make it worse? The weather always changing. The changing of the weather is making it so hard and difficult to understand and cope. So, it'd be like that. Anyways, looks like the ad break on Twitch side has been ended, so let's get back into it. Let's talk about the bread of the 2020 of the 2.0.24 patch of the spring and the winter spring patch. Alright, buckle down, folks. So, you know, your usual stuff doesn't really change. You know, your white bread still's the same. The white bread's the same. Your milk bread's the same. They kind of haven't really changed. Your corn tortillas are pretty much the same. Though I will actually go out and say they have been just ever so slightly buffed. They have been ever so slightly buffed because the colder weather. Colder weather makes things cold. I know, what a novel concept, right? But when something gets cold, they tend to be a little bit easier to work with. Corn tortillas, the dough themselves are colder, so they hold their shape a little bit better. It makes them easier to bake, or they make it easier to cook them off, and they're easier to work with. So they did get a little bit buffed. I'm happy that they got a little bit of love from the overlords. It's great. But cookies got they got nerfed hard. They got nerfed, not hard, but they really, really need that Christmas buff to really make them more viable than they already are. But they just kind of do get nerfed at the end of the day when the Jolly Holly days are over and it's not December anymore. They kind of get nerfed pretty hard. Like, they're okay, don't get me wrong, but in the sense of this list, like, they did get pretty nerfed. The shame. I like cookie players, like people who actually bake cookies and stuff. It's like they're like small little guys. You love what they do. They're cute little things, and also they just make nice little treats every once in a while. But they did kind of get nerfed. They lost their Jolly Holly spirit. It's like TF2 and the pumpkin bombs. It's like, man, TF2 is so fun with those unfair random crits. That's why Halloween is so fun, because you get the funny crits. We're not talking about TF2, because we are not playing TF2 today. Yet. But, let's see. Well, Brioche lost their nerf, obviously. Brioche lost their buff, you know? Weather gets hot, weather gets cold. What happens when the weather gets cold? Things go back to normal. However, it's a little bit more cold than usual, so it's even harder to make brioche. Not only is it more sticky and this and that, but like the dough itself is a little bit more difficult to work with because it gets colder, it seizes up, and if you wait too long, you'll actually be fine because it proves at such an incredibly slower temperature because we are working with different weathers here. It's nerfed in some sense, but maybe someone could actually notice and take around how, even though it's nerfed, it did get slightly buffed in some regards. But overall, I believe it kind of got nerfed a little bit. Bagels. Bagels definitely got buffed. And I'm gonna put challah in the same regard, because both kind of got buffed in some regard. The rolling of the dough, just like everything else on this tier list, rolling out dough that is slightly colder is a definite buff. It really makes it easier for them to really try and make their bread or make shape. It balances it out because then it gets a longer time to proof and relax and rise, so that's a little bit of it balances out. But they definitely get a buff in some regard. They take a little bit more time to practice, but they got a lot more ease of access, if you will. They're a lot more easier to try and accomplish. So yeah. Same thing with focaccia though, but reversed, because as the weather got colder, they got extremely nerfed in that regard. You have to wait a little bit longer. They take more time. They don't rest as easily as they would in warm temperatures, so unfortunately they did get very buffed, nerfed in that sense. Rye is kind of the same. Rye never really changes. Baguettes, in comparison to the last patch, didn't really change either. The time commitment does increase a little bit, so you could say they got nerfed in that regard, but the time that it takes is fairly negligible, so you don't need to worry about it that much. So, in that regard, they didn't really change that much, but it's completely fine. For the people who think that baguettes are fairly viable, they're fine, they don't really change too much. If anything, it makes their days like 5-10 minutes longer, so it's not really too bad because they use like an active sort of yeast or a dry or fresh yeast. They don't use like a poolish or a starter or something like that, so there's that. A huge upset with Shibata though. They really did become meta. Because, unlike how it is unlike how it's harder to work with it in warmer climates, they flourish in colder temperatures. They flourish. They hold their shape a lot more. They spread out a lot less. It's a lot easier to try and bake a ciabatta bread in comparison to other breads now. And since they do have a good nutritional value, they aren't just good for sandwiches, but they are pretty tasty bread just to eat by yourself with just some olive oil and chili flake. It is lovely. It is a great viable kind of loaf to make. And especially it holds a really strong advantage against baguettes, because baguettes, they both are pretty much the same thing. They are made by a different class by how ciabatta was made by the Italian branch, but the baguettes are made by the French side. So they're basically the same thing, but different class specialization, I guess. But baguettes are kind of just one shape, and they're thin and long. But ciabatta is flat and like wide. They hold more surface area, and you can still cut them into like crostinis or whatever it may be, and you can eat them just like that, and it's fine. But they also just flourish really good with sandwiches as well. They're like a premium choice when it comes to bread like that. However, sourdough did not get buffed. It did not get nerfed. I mean, it did not change. It did unfortunately get slightly nerfed. It did get hard nerfed. Well, actually, it did get pretty hard nerfed, because sourdough now, cold weather, okay, it kind of, it's like, it got buffed, but it got nerfed, if you know what I mean. You know? Sourdough is something that flourishes with time and temperature, and if you really wanted to try and get nice quality loaves in a quick amount of time, but still have a good amount of quality, then yeah, you want to let stuff go longer, and you could argue then that last time's patch was a little bit slower, a little bit worse, because then you don't develop much flavor in that sense, but it still was okay and got a good enough product, and even though if you compare it to now, it takes a lot longer. In comparison to the fall time, I could probably make a loaf in like 8 hours and then it'd be fine. But now it takes like overnight almost to make a nice good loaf of sourdough, just due to how long it takes and how cold it is now. It's really a detrimental buff for the people who wants to speed run with sourdough. Makes the game a little bit more harder. It makes the game into a waiting game. You kind of sit and stare and just watch everyone else make better bread in such quicker time. It's devastating. find it is devastating in some sense. It didn't get hard nerfed. It's not useless. There's still some viability with sourdough, but the speed advantage, it got such a good speed advantage, and I'm just a little salty about it. Not to say I don't care about speed and quality that much, but I do like speed and I like quality, and I like both of those things when I make bread. So when you take those things away from me, or at least one of those qualities, I will get a little upset. Quality is a lot higher now, I guess. But the speed is so detrimental. It makes it so difficult to work with now. So yeah. As you can see, there is a slight differentiation to where there has been some love in some places where I feel are a bit more biased. I think I don't know why, as I've already said, like, they're always changing the meta, they're always trying to make things fresh, and like, I guess like, oh, we need to make bread fresh, we have to make sure that bread stays viable throughout the entirety of the year. And it's like, oh, but wait, this year is slightly warmer, this year is slightly colder. And it's like, it's so stupid, because then you start thinking like, oh, okay, so let's see if we can get some consistency here. Like, let's see if we can get something that actually, like, works well or something like that, you know? So then you get into something like, hold on, I have another segment here. That's not the segment. I think this is the segment. Oh, there we go, okay. So, this is where I'm gonna talk about the BS when it comes to, like, the temperatures. Like, so, imagine this line, alright? We have a line here, and this represents of, like, how the temperature changes throughout, like, the years and such. Like, oh, it gets cold, 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 and then it gets hot, hot, and then it gets kind of hot, and then less hot, and then more hot. And, like, it's recently just kind of been hot and cold. But a more accurate line of what it's been recently, because climate change is now a thing, it's like getting hot, and it got cold for a while, but then it gets really, really hot. But then for some reason now, it's a lot less hot. Granted, it's still hot, it's not warm, but the hot, it's just kind of hot now, man. Like, the weather recently is just kind of hot, and I just don't want it to be as hot as it used to be. Also, like, the temperature was like 5 degrees colder than last year, which I don't think is exactly fair. Like, around where I was living, I checked the statistics, and like, it was like a little bit colder. And like, it shouldn't be like that, it should be like consistent. It's like, say, hotter, but like, yeah, I just don't think it's fair. Oh yeah, that's my citation. This guy makes sure that everything is citated before I get killed, because I don't have citations or whatever. But like, this is very important in that regard, because it's just slightly cooler. Not cold, it hasn't gotten to the blue yet, but it's slightly ever so much cooler, and it just makes bread baking a little bit more difficult in that regard. So yeah. Anyways, back to the tier list, I suppose. That's really all I have for you today. I don't really know what else to talk about. So that's pretty much all I had for today. Talking about bread, what has changed recently. And I guess this also can give you a little insight of like what kind of breads I want to make in the future and breads to come up. So consider this not just a little bit of an update on how bread baking is, but how maybe some streams will go moving forward, maybe? Maybe. Maybe this is just a huge gaslight. I'm not sure. I don't know. All I do know is that maybe in the future I want to make ciabatta bread, and maybe making some bacon. That'd be really cool to make that fresh. And I definitely want to make cheese. Oh, talk about it real quick. So you can't see it because I would dox myself if I shoot. Ooh, very dusty. I would dox myself if I showed you it. But I have a bottle of animal rennet. It coagulates milk, and I gotta store it in a refrigerator, and it is a cheese making supply. I have been wanting to make cheese on stream for quite some time. It is fun. So I have bought myself a thing of rennet, and we are going to be making stracciatella. We're gonna be making some stracciatella, mozzarella, and hold on. Burrata. We're gonna make burrata. We're gonna make stracciatella. We're gonna make mozzarella. We are going to be make freshy. We are going to be making fresh cheeses on stream. So we might make some fresh cheese on stream, and then we'll make some ciabatta bread, and I was even thinking about making like maybe some bolognese, you know? Ooh, like a nice fresh bolognese with a good sauce and good meat and all that sort of stuff. That does sound pretty good. So yeah, that is something to give you a little bit of insight of what's gonna happen in the future. We are definitely going to be baking, yes, but we are going to be making some cheese. So yes, you know what they say, cheese and bread go hand in hand, right? So yeah. That's a little update. That's your update for now. I got nothing else to talk about. So here, I'm gonna move this board right back up. And, well, I guess I am going to do the following. Because I don't know what to do now. I am going to actually probably end stream today. But here's the funny thing. I'm probably, don't count on it, probably going to do another stream. Maybe. I have to figure out if I'm going to do that. Because if I do another stream today, I gotta make sure of what we are going to be streaming today. Which is the big issue. That's the only thing stopping me right now. I don't know what to stream. I don't know what to do. So, until I figure that out, I am going to at least end today's stream. Today's stream is over. Gambare! We did it! Woohoo! Yatta! We did it all. So, I am going to end stream. Do we have anyone we can raid? We have no one to raid on Twitch, so we're just gonna end it right now, just how it is. So yeah. If anyone who is tuned in, I have not seen anyone in chat for quite some time. I do not feel like calling out lurkers, but thank you all for tuning in today. If you are here today, thank you for tuning in. Today was a nice little fun rant session of just bread. A nice little teaser for what's to come, I suppose, but thank you for tuning in today. I really need to get some rest. I have not slept enough recently, so I really just want to go get some sleep now. Maybe. If the Minecraft server is open, we'll definitely be playing Minecraft. But, yeah, that's enough for today. I am logging off for today. Today is that. I gotta make a schedule, actually, too. I gotta make a schedule fairly soon, so that's the next point of action I gotta do. So, thank you all for tuning in today to my silly little stream. I will see you all around maybe sometime soon. I am going to be doing my own thing now. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope you had a good one. I gotta do some more rants. Bread rants are kind of fun. So, thank you for tuning in today. I will see you all some other time. So yeah. Otu Kichi and ciao. Bye bye.